All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Week number 5 in the NFL. We got the Sunday slate video here. We're going to dive into each and every one of these games on Sunday. I'll give you my prediction on the side. I'll give you my prediction on the total. We'll talk about any other plays like player props that we like within the game as well. But as always, guys, make sure to keep an eye down on the pinned comment of this video. That's where you'll find all of my final plays, so I'm actually rolling with myself. If that does interest you, if you do want to jump on board and ride with me, or if you do want to fade me, that is going to be absolutely free down in the pinned comment. All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel.
I tell you guys I'm a dummy all the time. They don't suck. They've just been sucking. Get them down to -3, 4. More juice than Jose Canseco in his prime. Tell me you're new without telling me you're new. So don't go jumping down my throat in the comments, right? If you want to fade me, or if you do want to ride me, this still leaves a bad taste in my mouth, right? And remember, more chins, more wins.
Now, before we do dive into week number 5 here, let's talk a little bit about some recap. So if you guys watched the Thursday Night Football video, you know that we had a really, really good week number 4, right? Thursday Night Football, this video, the Sunday video last week, as well as Monday Night Football, absolutely crushed. Unfortunately, we wanted to pull some of that momentum into week number 5 with Thursday Night Football. We end up going 1-2. Now, is that the worst? No. Am I going to cry about it? No. We're coming off of a very, very good week. But unfortunately, I feel like some of these were good looks. But like I always tell you guys, woulda, coulda, shouldas don't exist in this industry, right? Christian McCaffrey, his longest rush over 14.5 yards. That does not come through. Kyron Williams, this is probably the one I'm a little bitter about. Over 67.5 rushing yards. Finished with 65 in a game in which obviously they put the ball in Matt Stafford's hands a ton. So if that game went a little bit more according to what most people thought, maybe we would have gotten 3 more rushing yards. Who knows, right? Coulda, shoulda, woulda. But at least he did punch in the touchdown there. I think he had a couple receiving touchdowns, so he did score his anytime touchdown there. But guys, before we do dive into this, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button down below. Let me know some of your favorite plays for this Sunday slate. I'm looking to jump on board with a few of you guys. And you're also helping out a bunch of other people that are looking for additional plays down in the comment section as well. So shout out to everyone that has dropped those plays and been crushing in the comments. We have some bangers every single week down there, so keep doing that if that's one of you. And if you want to try and jump on the train, get your plays down in the comments. All right, let's jump into game number 1 here. We're looking at the Vikings taking on the Browns. This is obviously an overseas game. Right now, Browns 3.5-point dogs. Total sitting at 36.5. Now, the quarterbacks are very important to note here, right? We have Gabriel making his regular season NFL debut, going up against J.J. McCarthy or Carson Wentz. J.J. McCarthy potentially coming back. I've seen him listed as questionable, downgraded to doubtful, back upgraded to questionable, so we shall see. Overall, I do think that, given the fact that this is obviously a game that's not being played in America and that type of thing, gives both teams a little bit more of, an even playing field. Now, the Vikings obviously did play last week outside of the U.S., so maybe that's a little bit of an advantage, but I do think we saw with Jackson Dart last week, right? A rookie quarterback coming in as the team's been stinking, kind of gives you a little oomph and lights a fire under your you-know-what. So I kind of like the Browns here at +3.5. Is it my favorite spot in this game? No. I would say I prefer the under just because you do have 2 decent defenses here. When I say decent, you have 2 good defenses here. And you also have, 2 quarterbacks could definitely be susceptible to making some mistakes. So though that total's really low, I like the under 39.5 more so than I do that +3.5. But one player prop spot that I'm looking at that probably is my main look in this game would be David Njoku. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that the numbers would tell you this is an amazing play or anything like that, but I do like his over 27.5 receiving yards. He's historically been really good with Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco is no longer the starter, but what I like about Njoku is he's a tight end that doesn't really require these crazy routes or long seam plays or anything like that. Like, he can be somewhat of a safety blanket for Gabriel, who's making his first start. So I like the idea of a big-bodied, sure-handed guy to be able to go out there and make things easy and be kind of the go-to guy when Gabriel gets in a little bit of trouble. And I expect him to be in a little bit of trouble, right? This Minnesota team blitzes, this Minnesota team applies pressure, so let's get the ball out quick to David Njoku and see him grab some passes here. 27.5 yards for -110 does not seem all that crazy right now. I don't mind his receptions either if that's something you prefer. All right, next game we're looking at is going to be kind of an interesting one, right? We got the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Houston Texans. Now, obviously, this is a Houston Texans team that kind of has underwhelmed so far this year, right? Not played too great. Ravens, you could kind of say the same exact thing about, but they've had such a brutal strength of schedule, so I do get why the Ravens are here now. Lamar Jackson most likely missing this game. That's kind of the biggest piece of news. I still don't mind the Ravens in this spot. I think that they have a really good team even without Lamar. I know Lamar's the biggest part of that team, but still, Cooper Rush coming in, I think that he'll be able to move the ball to some degree. And let's not forget, oh yeah, Derrick Henry is their tailback. Should be a decent spot for him too, especially since this Texans team, who was supposed to be a really good defense. Now, are they a bad defense? No, but they're more middle of the pack than people would have assumed. But they're ranked 23rd in defensive DVOA through 4 weeks here. And they haven't had the craziest of runs in terms of teams that they've had to play, right? So I think that this is going to be a spot in which Derrick Henry can kind of control the game. And yeah, that's great because now we don't have to worry, obviously, about Lamar Jackson taking over or controlling or anything like that. Now, I don't want to undersell this Texans spot, right? I think it was the Rams, Bucks, Jags, and Tennessee Titans that they've played, right? Not the worst of schedules, but you're telling me Baltimore isn't just pining for a win. They got that win against Cleveland in week number 2. Other than that, they lost to Buffalo, lost to Detroit, lost to Kansas City. This Houston team ain't any of those squads. So no Lamar Jackson, no problem is kind of my mindset here. Give me the Ravens, maybe even just on the money line for some plus money. And I don't mind the over in this spot. I think there's a lot of overreactions to the offenses that we've seen from both of these squads, but they still do have plenty of playmakers. And when you see playmakers and a total down at 39.5, I don't necessarily mind it whatsoever. Now, the forecast also kind of points towards an over, right? I believe we have 60% humidity, 74 degrees, no rain, no wind, anything like that. So really do like the over. And player props haven't really dug too much into this one. Obviously, with Lamar Jackson being out, that the offense would operate differently. But one just off the top of the head might be a Derrick Henry over in attempts look, because again, though I think Cooper Rush could be a serviceable, he had some decent backup spots in Dallas, I don't necessarily think they're going to fully trust him with the ball against a decent pass defense here and one of the better corners in the game in Stingley. So maybe Derrick Henry gets, a 5% increase in his workload. It's going to be a high line as well, but I still don't mind his over in rush attempts. Real quick, guys, before we do move on with the rest of the games, I want to talk to you about Sleeper, and they have a free pick this week for you and I to take advantage of, or for new users specifically to take advantage of here. 0.5 passing yards for Dak Prescott. They also have a ton of discounts on the app over and over again, week by week, day by day. No one's doing it like Sleeper with these discounts. So make sure to go ahead and check out all the discounts, all the promos with the link down in the description, as well as the pinned comment. You're also going to get your first deposit matched up to $100. So yeah, you get all those promos. You get a free $100 if you choose, and a Dak Prescott free square. I love how Sleeper does it with their multipliers. Each and every play you throw into the entry changes the payout dynamically. No more of this, 3 for 3 pays 5x, 2 for 2 is 3x. No. Each and every play has its multiplier. Really, really cool stuff, guys. Go ahead and check it out. Again, that link will be down below in the description, as well as the pinned comment. If Sleeper's available in your state and you have not tried it yet, you are absolutely missing out. Link down below. All right, next one up could be a sloppy one, but could be a statement game for either one of these teams. Now, I'm using the term statement game lightly, but I do think that there are some gaping holes in both of these teams in terms of offense and defense overall. Dolphins taking on the Panthers here. Now, Dolphins on the road, 1.5-point favorites. Total sitting at 45.5. Obviously, we saw the Dolphins in primetime last week against the Jets. I don't think that they looked all that terrible, but the news obviously is that Tyreek Hill busted up his knee. So now, Jalen Waddle's that number one receiver, or maybe you can even argue that Achan's the number one receiver. Malik Washington may get a little bit of an uptick here as well. Darren Waller could also be a decent look. But overall, this is just a spot in which I'm saying, okay, I think that this Miami defense is a little bit better than people might think in terms of at least playmakers on the team and whatnot. So that they get the point in that category. And then based on that Panthers defense and how they just sit back in zone, don't pressure, barely run any man, I think Tua's going to be pretty comfortable. Now, I will say and let you guys know that Tua, we talked about it last week, right? Tua's actually really good against man defense, not so much zone. His completion percentage drops against zone. His interception rate goes up against zone. DVOA drops heavily. So it isn't that I'm loving that this Panthers team is going to sit back in zone. It's that I don't necessarily think they have the playmakers, so we should be able to see Achan, Waddle, even Waller look okay, right? But it's the fact that they literally don't sniff the quarterback in terms of pressure or blitz. That is another sort of big thing that really, really troubles Tua. If he's not going to have that, I expect him to be patient enough to beat some zone look. So give me Miami. I also don't mind the over in this spot. And maybe a Miami team total over. We want to trim some fat and erase some variables. That could be a good look. But like I said, I do expect some, added exposure to some of these players without Tyreek Hill. Makes a big, deal that the fact that his target percentage was so high and now he's not going to be there. We kind of saw how that went after he was out last week. Darren Waller and Achane are probably the two that I'm looking at. I would say Waddle potentially because when not blitzed and when not pressured, Waddle actually is one of Tua's favorite targets. But when it comes to the zone and everything like that, not so much. So I would say Achane, maybe Waller, actually getting some looks here in this spot, depending on what the lines are going to be. Because again, I had already mentioned we should expect some elevation from the lines and just from what's going to happen because we have such a big target missing like Tyreek Hill. So we'll see where we come out on this one. Like I said, could be a sloppy one. We may not dip our toe into the waters there, but keep an eye on the final plays. All right, next up, we have the Colts taking on the Raiders here. Colts coming off that loss last week. Now they're 7-point favorites against this Raiders squad. The total sitting at 47.5. And where do we go in this one? Well, first and foremost, I want to start with kind of the player prop and maybe game script side of this. I do expect Daniel Jones to have a pretty damn good game. Obviously, he's been really, really good to start the year. They were 3-0. They played the Rams, who I think are a very, very good defense, and they came up just a touchdown short, right? But Daniel Jones still threw for 262 yards and a touchdown. He had 2 interceptions. I'm not saying that's going to, not be the case in a sense, but I do think against a secondary like we have here with this Raiders squad, Daniel Jones might be fairly comfortable, right? They're going to play a lot of zone defense. Daniel Jones better against zone, not apply much pressure, not drop many blitzes. So Daniel Jones could be in a decent enough spot here. I like the matchup for all of his receivers as well. Michael Pittman Jr. has been kind of on and off the questionable list. If he plays, I like Daniel Jones and him to both have some decent looks here. Not exactly Jonathan Taylor, though. I think if there's one thing that we can give the Raiders a little bit of credit for, it's that their rushing defense isn't all that bad. Right now, it's kind of weird. You'd think with Max Crosby and that type of thing that they'd actually be a good pass defense. But no, the secondary is that bad that realistically the only thing we can give them credit for on the defensive side, I would say, is the rush game. So I'm looking at Daniel Jones, regardless of if they're blowing them out or, winning by a ton. Daniel Jones to have his fair share of attempts, completions, passing yards, that type of stuff. And again, Michael Pittman Jr. is a guy that I expect to kind of prosper from that. Now, Geno Smith is going to be pressured, right? This Indianapolis team blitzes a ton. Do they apply much pressure? No, but I do expect with the blitz coming in that we can almost just assume that there is some pressure. So I don't necessarily think that this Raiders offensive line is going to fully hold up. I think Indianapolis kind of stunts any sort of ball, I guess any drive momentum, I should say, that they're going to have. So I like the idea of Las Vegas team total under. Don't mind the spot with the Colts, though I will say that -7 is obviously a little tricky in terms of a key number. Maybe it's more of like a Colts money line parlay piece that we can add them in with someone else, but there's something else. But give me the Colts, a team total under for the Raiders, and like I said, some Daniel Jones and Michael Pittman looks could definitely be viable and live this week as well. All right, we have a potentially another messy one on our hands here, right? We got the Giants taking on the Saints. Now, Saints right now 2.5-point favorites, total sitting at 40.5. Jackson Dart led the Giants to a win over the Chargers last week, and he did lead them to a win, and I give him a lot of credit. I do still question some scheme type things and some game plan things from him because a lot of their third down conversions, which came up very, very clutch, were just him getting the ball in shotgun and running it, and the Chargers had no clue what to expect. I think the Saints game plan a little bit more for that, but this is still the Giants at plus money against the Saints team that may be one of the worst, if not the worst team in the league, right? They gave the Bills a run for their money last week, but then even still, you look at the final score and it's like, did they, right? Like when it's time to not up or shut up, they go and shut up. So I think I'm going to lean towards the Giants in this spot. I know no Malik Neighbors and all that, but still, I do think that they have a little bit more momentum behind them. With Jackson Dart starting his second game here, I think there's a little bit more for them to play for in a sense as well. You know what I mean? They treat this as a more important game than potentially the Saints do. This is, like I said, probably a messy game. Also going to take a peek at the over, though. If I had the psycho alert alarm, if we weren't traveling, I'd sound it because, yeah, Jackson Dart, Spencer Rattler, let's take the over. Yikes, right? But that being said, we do have two really, really poor defenses here. So if Scatabo can get going, if Jackson Dart gets going, I think that the Giants can score some points. So maybe we just look at a Giants team total over if necessary. It's a weird one, like I mentioned, but that's what I'm going to be leaning towards here. Giants and the over. Do I love it? No, but it's hard for me to look at the Saints and or the under. All right, guys, I wanted to talk to you about the Fade Me store. If you don't know what that is the merch we have here on the channel. I wish I was wearing some to be able to show you guys, but we traveled, we flew yesterday, and guess what? We made it to the destination. Our luggage did not. So I don't have any of the product actually here, which is great to run an ad for our merch and don't have the product. But the Gambler Football 25 collection is now live. You can see 3 of the items: the premium hoodie, the premium crew neck, and we also have the rope hat as well. Go ahead and check it out, guys. That link will be down below in the description, as well as the pinned comment. Use code NFL10. We'll take 10% off your order. No minimums, no restrictions, anything like that. Just 10% off your order this week. We put a ton of effort and time into the merch. We're always getting the comments, why don't you promo more? I didn't even know you had it and all that. It just kind of slips through the cracks, right? I want this thing to be so natural that I don't want to shove it in your face. But when we have a new collection drop, and a new collection that is as comfortable and as awesome for football fans as this new one, we got to shove it in your face a little bit. So go check it out, guys. FadeMe.store or GuyBostonSports.com/store. Head to the new arrivals area and you'll see the new collection. But we got a ton of stuff for all you sports bettors out there. So go ahead and check it out. Again, FadeMe.store. I'll also put a link down in the description, as well as the pinned comment, making it very easy for y'all. Y'all. That sounds good coming out of my mouth. Or does it? All right, next up, we have a game that I don't think is going to be sloppy, finally, right? We got the Jets taking on the Cowboys. I really like the over in this game. The problem is I think a lot of other people are going to like the over. Now, in H to H, I also took this against Tassos, and he said the same thing. He was like, he's seen tons of people on the over, which does make sense, right? You have two defenses that haven't been all that great to start the season. Yes, the Jets have been good against the run, but is that really what we're worried about with this Dallas team? No. And then we know this Dallas defense kind of stinks. So I really do like the over there at 47.5. I think it's a good look, but the problem is that, like I said, why is it just hanging there, right? Why do we see more percent of bets on it, but percent of money on the under? It's a little dicey, a little weird. Smells kind of trappy, but it is going to be the main thing I look at here. I'm also going to say that, this is a good spot for Dallas. Do I think it's a good spot in theory? No, but in practice, maybe so. I mean, Dak Prescott versus Justin Fields seems a little bit more layup-y to me. Dallas, yeah, no kidding, their defense stinks, but they put up 40 points against this Green Bay defense. Remember, everyone, this Green Bay defense, one of the best defenses, one of the best pressure teams in the league. Micah Parsons makes his return. Guess what? No problem. Dak still goes out there and fires. So Dak Prescott having a career year. Good time to mention we have his over 3750 in terms of his passing yards this year. I think that's what we got it at. He's looking really, really good. I don't see him struggling here against a Jets secondary, a Jets defense. Sauce Gardner, sure, I get it, but I do think that there's other ways that they can move the ball. So I like the over. I'm also going to take a peek at Dallas. I have this game at 3.5/4 at like minus 3.78. So yeah, it's not like the model saying this is an absolute hammer spot for Dallas, but still a good enough spot for it. Hey, maybe that's just by happenstance, right? Look at this. We're in Cowboys colors here. So give me the Cowboys as well as the over. I think that Justin Fields can move the ball in this defense. I think that I can move the ball in this Dallas defense. So yeah, hopefully Dak scores more points than them, because there are a lot of talented pieces on that Jets team. But still, Dallas for me. But that over I like a lot. I just hope it's not one of those public trap games. All right, next up, Eagles taking on the Broncos. This should be a pretty good game. I mean, I know a lot of people may be a little bit down on the Broncos just based on how they started the year, but they did look decent in that game against Cincinnati on Monday night, 28-3 win. Now, is that a Jake Browning and Cincinnati's offense thing, or is it the Denver defense that we all sort of thought would be very good, right? Who knows? What I'll say here is that let's give credit where it's due, right? Now, they beat Tennessee. Everyone expected that. They lost by 1 to Indianapolis, and it was kind of a fluke, right? Like, Denver should have won that game if they didn't have the phantom call on the field goal. Probably would have, or would have been a win, actually. Then they play against this Chargers team, and they lose, and everyone is all high on the Chargers. They only lose by 3 points to that rival. They whoop Cincinnati. Now they are playing Philadelphia, and I'll give you that Philadelphia is picking up right where they left off in terms of winning games. But the way Philadelphia is winning games is not sweat-free, right? Sweated it out against Dallas. The weather delay and all that opening night, maybe there was some more there than what was happening on the field, but regardless. Honestly, Kansas City kind of handed them that one. Literally, Travis Kelce, the interception that he just tossed over to the back. They had to come back miraculously and beat the Rams, and then they even made the heart palpitate against the Bucks team last week, right? So this Philadelphia team, yes, they're looking good. They're not losing games, but they are definitely sweating these things out. Maybe it's a crazy play, maybe it's a psycho play, but I kind of like the Broncos here plus 3.5 points. I think the Eagles can win this one, but I see it as being a 23-20 type game, meaning I'm also slightly leaning towards the under. I think Saquon's going to get some action in this one as well. Obviously, we've heard a lot about how, hey, this run game is still very good, but just they really haven't unloaded Saquon or got him going or anything like that. I think that in a messy type of back and forth game, you're not necessarily going to want to put the ball in Jalen Hurts' hand, right? I think it's going to be a Saquon type game. This is not to say that Denver is going to let Saquon run all over them. I just think there's going to be a lot of bullets in the clip for Saquon. So maybe his rush attempts, maybe him obviously to score a touchdown in some sort of a parlay, but I don't mind the yards either. You're obviously not getting the best price because of how good he is, and he's Saquon freaking Barkley, but I think this could be a nice spot for him to get a lot of volume. This is a big game. It should be a tough defensive game. I don't think they're going to want to put the ball in Jalen's hand. Now, obviously, flash forward, you're probably looking back at this being like, Jalen Hurts with his career game tore up the Broncos defense, threw for like 400 yards, probably. All right, next up here we have the Cardinals taking on the Titans. I think a lot of people were impressed by this Cardinals squad on Thursday night, and it does make sense. I get it. That wasn't the easiest of defenses to go up against or anything like that. So I don't want to take away from them, but I will call out, just based on social media and based on what I'm seeing, I'm kind of sensing a little bit of overreaction to that game in a sense. I mean, yeah, they came back and, in a sense, only lose by 3 to a really good defense. I get it. But still, that was a 1.5 point spread. They didn't cover it. You know what I mean? It wasn't like this is a spot in which you could sit there and say that they were phenomenal, right? Like, I give more credit, using another game as an example, Cowboys tying the Packers, to give a little bit of credit to that team. I don't know. That's neither here nor there. I think the point that I'm looking at here is that this Tennessee squad, they look really, really bad, but realistically, this might be the easiest competition in terms of defense that Cam Ward has seen. Denver, Rams, the Colts, and the Texans. Obviously, those are tough teams to play against. He competed in that week 1 game. That was mostly because Bo Nix and the offense of the Broncos weren't really moving the ball. Hasn't looked great since. But this is an Arizona team in terms of points allowed per game. 22nd in, I think they're the 6th best. So yeah, 22nd lowest. I don't know why we have that in the notes. But when you really do look at it, they are getting passed all over. 255 yards per game. Now they're getting passed on a ton, but that makes a lot of sense, right? They have they have a track record of the Saints and the Panthers and all that. So teams are trying to come back on them. The biggest thing that I want to note here is that they play a ton of zone. Cam Ward, obviously rookie year, not much data to go off of, but he has been, Batman versus Robin in terms of zone versus man. He's looking really, really good in terms of his completion percentage. It jumps 15, almost 16 points against zone. DVOA jumps almost 40 percentage points, and his EPA goes up only almost 30 points. So I do think that him against zone should be really good. And you're probably like, oh, well, the issue with him so far is that when he gets pressured, he gets blitzed. This Cardinals team, 31st in terms of blitz frequency and 24th in terms of pressure. Cam Ward, I think, has a good game here, and 7.5 points is way, way too much, if you ask me. Now, I've been on record saying I'm not exactly the biggest believer in, Kyler and Marvin Harrison and all that. I think that they have a good team, but a 7.5 point favorite type spot. I know they have the extended rest and all that. Nothing that I'm loving. So I'm going to lean towards the Titans. Also getting kind of crazy here with Titans team total over. I think that could be something to look at as well. And like I mentioned, Cam Ward props would also be something that I would like to mention and potentially roll with. Keep an eye on the final plays. Moving on, we have the Seahawks taking on the Bucks. I think this is going to be one of the better games on the entire slate here. Seattle obviously looking like a really good defense. We just kind of talked about them in that game against Arizona too. They're making plays when they need to, and I think that it's been enough time, right? Through 4 weeks that we can say this is a legit defense. Not that anyone was really on the side of saying they weren't, but just want to say I do think they're a good defense. Tampa Bay coming off their first loss. It was to the reigning Super Bowl champs, right? 31-25. But before that, they had beat Atlanta, Houston, the Jets. Maybe not exactly the most crazy strength of schedule, but Baker Mayfield's magic has been real this year, right? So I do like the idea of this being a back and forth game and one where, yes, Seattle makes a big defensive play, but then the offense doesn't push it down the field, and all of a sudden Baker gets it back and they get those points right back or something like that, right? So I like the idea of the Bucks +3. I'm not going to sit here and say that this is a mispriced line and anything like that. Now, I took Bucks money line when we got the plus money play wheel slice on H to H. Guys, I've mentioned H to H many times. If you guys don't know what H to H is, it's another show we do here on the channel. A little bit more fun and competitive, me versus Tassos. But anyways, this Bucks team I do think has a very, very viable chance of winning this game. I think that it's going to be a closer game, just one way or the other. That's going to come down to a drive that either happens or it doesn't, like a lot of these Bucks games have. I think Baker's going to get pressured by Seattle, making this a little bit more even and all that, but he'll be able to escape it and make some miraculous plays, right? Everything I'm saying is like give and take, one way or the other, black and white, not black or white. It's like this is a spot in which I like that field goal in my back pocket. But I'm not going to sit here and tell anyone that likes Seattle this week that, yeah, Seattle at home with that defense is nothing to look at, right? I think this could go either way, but I'm looking at the Bucks plus 3 points. Don't mind the idea of the over 44.5. If you like Seattle, I wouldn't be surprised if you're on the under. If you like the Bucks like me, wouldn't shock me if you're on the over, because I would say the Bucks, even though they have a good defense, when they're in these games and they're rolling, it's because Baker Mayfield's arm is rolling. All right, next up, this should be one-sided, but what do I say about coulda, shoulda, wouldas, right? Like, shoulda should not be in the vocabulary here. We got the Lions taking on the Bengals here. Actually, Lions are the away team, right? Let's fix that. Boom, power of editing. Now, this Bengals team kind of put everyone on notice for all the wrong reasons in that Monday night game against Denver. We already talked about it, right? I don't know what they're going to do at the quarterback position. This just looks absolutely ugly. For that reason, yeah, it's hard for me to even consider the Bengals. 10 points is a big number, but it's probably Lions for me. Now, this would be a parlay piece. Maybe you can get Lions like -2.5 or something like that. That might work. And like I said, we're still kind of searching for a parlay piece with the Colts. If we like the idea of Colts money line, maybe Lions -1.5, get this into some sort of consumable odds range, right? So simply put, I like the Lions. I think they score some points here. If, Denver could score 20 plus points, I think the Lions could score a million plus. So I'll lean in the Lions' favor here. Maybe taking a peek at like Montgomery or Gibbs' yards, someone that they'll chew the clock with. And honestly, it might be like a Monty spot. So, yeah, not exactly the best game. I know we went through it fairly quick, but Lions are just the far better team. And honestly, yeah, I think that they're showing people, in week number 1, they're like, oh boy, the Lions without Ben Johnson, blah, blah, blah. They're showing people that they're still one of the best teams. And the Bengals have almost proven to people with no Joe Burrow, his team will struggle. Another good one on our hands here. We got the Chargers taking on the Commanders. Now, both these squads coming off of L's last week. I would say that the Chargers is a little bit more surprising, but even still, this Commanders team, I would think that they would be able to beat Atlanta even with Marcus Mariota, but nonetheless, they end up allowing, 34 points to that young Falcons offense. Either way, I do think that the Chargers are probably in a better spot. They're back home. They just lost to a bad team, and let's not forget or just act like we didn't try to claim this team as one of the better teams in the league, 2 weeks ago, right? So I like the Chargers. That field goal spread is a little trap-like. I do think there's going to be some points in this one, though. I think that Jaden Daniels potentially coming back for the Commanders is obviously going to give him a little life, but even still, he might not be 100%. Terry McLaurin potentially coming back might not be 100%. So that's why I do still lean towards the Chargers, but I think if Jackson Dart and the Giants offense could put up somewhat of a decent stat line against this Charger squad, as long as those guys play Daniels and Terry McLaurin, I think that we could see something similar here from a total perspective. Now, a couple player prop spots that I'm looking at, actually one main one would be Keenan Allen's receptions. I don't mind his yards either, but over 4.5 receptions for -138 doesn't seem like it's all that crazy right now. One thing to note here, 2 things I should say. We'll expect some pressure from the Commanders as well as a lot of man coverage. Keenan Allen getting a ton of target share against man and against pressure, and especially when man coverage sends some pressure. So I like the idea of Keenan Allen over 4.5 receptions. Honestly, I don't know which one I like more, Chargers -3 or Keenan Allen. If it's the Chargers of last week, that's tough. But I still think that we could see, them kind of snap right back into form, especially knowing that this Commanders defense may not be all that hot, right? All right, guys, last game for today's video. As a reminder, this is going to be the Sunday Night Football game. So I'm going to go through it fairly quickly, give my take on it. But Tassos makes a standalone video for the Sunday night game each and every week. And if you're looking for the Monday Night Football plays, I make a standalone video for the Monday Night Football game. So make sure to check those out as their own video here on the channel. But Sunday Night Football, Bills, Patriots. We got a little division rivalry here. Bills right now 7.5 point favorites. If you can get this inside 6, or inside 7, I don't see why you wouldn't. I expect this line to keep going up and up and up. Yes, the Patriots, looked good last week. It was against the Panthers. They looked good against Miami a couple weeks before that. It's Miami. They were kind of struggling at the time. The Steelers defense kind of doormatted them, right? The Raiders defense did as well. This Buffalo defense is better than we think, and realistically, this Buffalo offense should be able to do anything they want to the Patriots. I'm a big Patriots fan, but I can admit it. You know what I mean? Like, I think that we're overreacting to the Patriots and the fact that there's also, division rivals, like they always keep this game close. Yeah, these two teams played close when Tom Brady was the quarterback of the Patriots and the Bills stunk. A little bit different here, I think, when you have, the Bills just rolling and obviously, Drake May looking pretty good, but nonetheless, I just can't necessarily see this being a blowout game, a non-blowout for the Bills. That being said, last year they played a couple times. Bills won by 3 one time, and then the Patriots actually beat them late in the year, but Josh Allen barely played. So, yeah, to me, I guess I'm hating on my own hometown crowd here. I like the idea of the Bills scoring a bunch of points, so maybe look at that over, even though it's really high, and the Bills winning by like 10 plus, sadly. But guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's show. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. Let me know your favorite plays again down in the comments. We will be back home by the time we do our next football video. So good news there is that we'll be back in the regular the regular office and everything like that recording. I know the audio, the camera might look a little bit different. The graphics, everything we do might look a little bit different. But I really, really do appreciate you guys for rocking with me while we're out here on vacation and stuff like that, seeing the world, but still grinding out these videos. Really, really do appreciate it. With that said, we'll catch you guys in the next one. All right, peace out.